if we look at the names of the different types, you'll see the ego terms that Ichazo had, because he was focused on what the ego was doing. So if you ego resentment just meant the ego was focused on resentment. You could recognize them, they could recognize themselves because they were resenting others not doing as they should. Then Claudio came along with his own names that were not just the fixation or the passion or combination, but like where he thought they saw themselves. So his ego resent, he still identified resentment with the one, but he said it was angry virtue. So he felt angry virtue caused the ego resentment, or ego resentment was made okay by seeing it as a virtue, but being angry about it. They were the first two. Then the first authors that were easily accessible, they had names for the type. Now they were given names. And in the name, they had to then differentiate because they were copyrighted terms. Ego resentment, ego flattery. So all this information on type 2 about helpfulness and giving is kind of a misunderstanding of type 2. It's more the two needing to be in rapport with others and being supportive according to the needs of the other person. So need does come into play, because when you're flattering someone, you're going to do so in a way that feels accurate. Or so the gift of the two is the ability to see what matters to people. But what they really want to do is be needed. That's where the word need comes from, by being the advice giver of whatever is going on. So if they happen to have a tritype that includes the 9 and includes the 6, they're going to see themselves as very giving. If the 2 includes the tritype of the 7 who wants freedom, it amplifies the 2's need for freedom. And then you add 8, which is going to do things their own way anyhow. And you have someone that's really free-spirited and on their own and in pursuit of what interests them. So they could both be 2s. But the latter 2, the one I just explained, will identify with 7. A chunk of type 2 was put into type 7. So here was a mistake of the kindliness and the consideration of 9 and the patience of 9 being put into 2, which 2 could be kind, but in an active way. 9 is kind in a receptive way. And then the wild child 2, the freedom-seeking 2 that wants sensation and to enjoy things, was put into 7. But they're emotional. So how do you tell the difference? Both 7 and 2 are hedonistic, sensate. They want the things that please them. Actually, so does 8. So someone who has 2, 7, and 8 is the most naturally hedonistic and in pursuit of experience. Now, people that understand that kind of type of selfishness that was put into 7 actually is type 2. Like the 7 is just more going to pursue what they want. If you want to come along, great. You don't? Okay, I'll find someone else that wants to do it. Whereas the 2 is trying to talk you into going, oh, come on, I'll do this and we'll do it together. And there's more of an emotional engagement and they show their emotion. 7s are mental. They're only going to show anger. They might be kindly, or they may say, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you, but they're not going to want to be there when you're emotionally distressed for a long period of time, because their defense strategy is keep distress at a distance. Emotions for all head types are confusing. The only type that identifies with negative emotions in the head center is the 6. And that's because they identify with the underdog. And because the 6 is the most emotional type, that every time they think a thought, they'll have the corresponding feeling and you'll see it on their face. But as things go, the 7 is like disidentified with emotions. But if they're a 2 identifying themselves as a 7, and they have 7 in the Tritype, they're going to say, oh, I'm selfish, so I'm a 7. But all types are selfish, by the way. It's just, what are we selfish about? And then the go for 3, ego go, was the go, go, go quality, must do, do, do quality of the 3. I am what I do, so I must be doing. And for the 4, the ego melancholy is, I need to find meaning in everything, and I won't get attention unless I show some sort of distress or longing. Now, is that cognitive? Not at first. None of these are. We're just doing it as children. It's how we look at the world. And when it matches, we don't notice it. But when we're different than the world of our family of origin or extended family or school and friends, then we can feel secondary emotions regarding these issues. But if you have the defense strategy of 4, it's that you must have pain to find happiness. Now, anyone that's sad can think they're a 4, by the way. If they had a sad childhood or loss, they know what it feels like to have loss. But if you're a true on 4, then you actually are looking and trying to find painful circumstances to ultimately find happiness. Because if someone takes care of you, if someone steps in and doesn't try and take your autonomy, like some people, when they're upset, they appreciate support, but the 4 is like, don't tell me what to do. Then they're like, whoa. But if you feel for me, you listen to me, and you tend to me when I'm in distress, which is in some way or another every day, then that's happiness. Oh, you care. So understanding what each type needs is important. So the 4, according to Don Riso, as a 4, was the individualist, which was a very good term. But the 8 is the rugged individualist. So you're always going to find ways that it's not a perfect match. But if you look at the Tritype, it will be, because you'll be putting these different ego issues that Oscar identified together. Now, ego stinge is holding on to their stuff, not sharing what they have, holding on to resources, regardless of the subtype, because the fear is there's not enough. And if you don't hold on to your own, then you won't have enough when you need it. So the type itself is kind of self-present nature. But then the subtypes vary dramatically. But the first point of reference is I must know everything, because I can't depend on the accuracy of others or the resource of others, and I can't be available to others to pay them back, because maybe in that moment I won't have enough. So the 5 determines, wait, I need to observe others from a distance and not have emotional entanglement, because that could cost me in a moment. I don't have it to deliver. So the value is more to each his own. Everyone take care of their own needs, and don't give me what I don't want, I'll know what I want. And if you have what I want, I will pursue it. This is the 5. But otherwise, I'd rather be the advisor because I trust my information more than I do anyone else's. Because the 5 is taking the time to pursue the data at the core, wherever he or she could find it, beginning with probably early man. We've always relied on the 5 for the most accurate and complete data, even if the 5 does not have an opinion one way or another, or a changing opinion. They will know the resources that are available better than anyone else naturally and in most situations. Now, can they get kind of overly focused in a certain value? Yes, but they usually have other types in their tritype that are going to make that happen. And then ego cowardice means the fear of being a coward. It's not saying the 6 is a coward. It's saying the 6 is preoccupied with the fact that they could be a coward and what they would do. So if you have a defense strategy that's focused on worst case scenarios, you're going to naturally consider what you do in any given situation. Remember, I said it depends with the 6. Well, having said that, it's key to understand why Naranjo would call the 6 the persecuted persecutor. And that is, you're afraid of persecution or people that are going to overpower you. You're afraid you're going to be a coward. So you're either going to align with strong people or you're going to find the way to go against being overpowered. And in a way, the focus is on a fear of helplessness and what you need to do to make sure you've got someone on your team, someone on your side, someone watching your back to manage this fear of cowardice. But then what happens if you are a 6 and you project, because remember the defense strategy is projection, that someone or something is intimidating or dangerous, you're going to ask other people, do you think that person's telling the truth? Do you agree with that? And unwittingly, the 6 gathers people together that in a way undermines someone who may or may not be a problem. But if you look at all these types as needed to survive adversity, it's the 6's position within the Enneagram that raises doubt about what's going on with someone. Now, are they right? Maybe. Are they wrong just as much of the time? You bet. But they will raise the alarm and thus end up persecuting people that maybe just were strong-minded or independent in a way that made them worry. So the strength of the 6 is noticing inconsistencies and then adapting accordingly, but noticing when others are inconsistent and then talking about that to other people all the time. It's just natural for a 6 to point out whatever they don't believe, whatever they don't trust. Once they understand that when they're discussing so easily that something or something is someone or something is dangerous, they've created a dynamic that could be that way. But the way they see themselves is kind of as a loyalist. They're loyal to their chosen people, not to everybody. So some 6s won't think they're loyal. They might think, oh, I'm an investigator. But were they an investigator before the internet? Whereas the 5 is always investigating everything. Maybe even holding their opinion, not sharing it with others, but they are observing. So I think that each name given by different authors address something important about the type. I found that the 6s saw themselves loyal to what they wanted to guard, and they could be protective to those they were loyal to. But actually, what came out of this research is that the 6 is only loyal to the people they believe in. If it's their school, they'll be loyal. Or if they're anti-social, they'll be disloyal. So loyalty is the issue, but who they're loyal to and who they're disloyal to is based on individual circumstances, but they're all skeptic. Then the plan of 7 is not planning for certainty and security. It's planning the next enjoyable experience. Like, okay, then I'm going to go here, and then let's go get ice cream after that. You know, we could go get the ice cream and look at the sunset, and they could just be putting together all types of pleasurable things. But sometimes when people read that the 7 is ego plan, they think it's someone that's like a planner that has to get everything done, everything on the list, thoroughly and completely executed, or they feel anxiety. No, that's not what this is talking about. If you don't have a pleasurable plan in the future, you'll have to deal with emotions and fears and concerns. And that's what the 7 is planning against. So the next best thing, the next enjoyable experience, thoughts about where you're going to travel to, what you're going to do when you're there. It's not about emotions. It's about pushing emotions down and pushing fears and concerns down in favor of a future that is going to be enjoyable. And then venge is vengeance for the 8. And it's about needing to make things even. So it's revenge or vengeance, but it's like, wait, you did that to me? Okay, I'm going to pay you back in the same coin, not more, not less, but equal. It's like if you've ever heard the term revenge is best served cold, that's because the 8 goes away from their emotion to their gut, and they're going to come from indifference. But the need is to make it fair. Now, if that little issue happens close together, like in a few days or a few moments, it's done. But they don't keep seeking revenge. They're not vindictive. They just need it fair and square. Then it's done. It's even. And sometimes there's still help before they learn about the Enneagram, but they just say, I just want you to know what that would feel like. Yeah, I'll help you. But on an unconscious level, when you don't know your Enneagram type, you're going to do all these without realizing it. And then that's why Naranjo saw the 8 is coming on strong. Yeah, like, you don't want to mess with me, which of course would scare the type that's afraid they might be a coward. And then with the 9, it was ego indolence, meaning, yeah, I want vengeance. I'm a gut type as a 9, but I don't want to waste my energy. And if I do that, someone could want to have revenge on me, then I'd have to have more energy. Well, you know, maybe it's better just to think about something else, do something else. Do something I enjoy. Why? I don't want to take a side. If I take one person's side, I'll be angering the other side. And I just don't want to be in the middle of anything. That's why when a lot of people looked at Helen's description of the mediator, a lot of 9s didn't recognize themselves because they would avoid conflict, but they could mediate if people trusted them and they knew both people. They could step in and try to help everybody be of one mind and be very good at it, which is why I combined them. But actually, over time, I changed my term to peace seeking. In a way, it's comfort seeking. So if the 9 is uncomfortable, they're just not going to do it. So if you ask a 9 to do something, they won't say no. They just won't do it. And that's a way to not be in conflict, but not say no, which could cause conflict. So you just don't do it. And each type has a way that they do or don't do something. Indolence is kind of just like going the way of comfort, going the way that's non-conflictual. And sometimes that means you have to delay gratification. But what the 9 will do is find that gratification on their own time in their own way. They're not a pushover. So people that think of 9 as not individualistic are missing the part that 9 sees the individuality in everyone and is trying to hold it all like a big universe. And they are the glue to the universe. They hold everything together.